Hey everyone, it's Rich Fettke, co-founder and co-CEO of Real Wealth Network, and I'm really excited to bring the Focused Investor webinar to you again for the 15th year in a row. I can't believe that. I'm glad you're here. So this is all about wrapping up 2019, completing your year, and looking at what's next for you. So I'm glad you're here. As always, we like to start with a disclaimer, or we always start with a disclaimer, but this one's a little different, little twist on this. So the strategies mentioned in this presentation may not be appropriate for everyone. These strategies are only appropriate if you have a strong desire to grow, improve, and be a more focused investor. Your past performance is no guarantee of future results. And while every effort is made to design and create a life of abundance and happiness, the possibility of challenges, mess-ups, and failures always exists. However, I believe that you don't want to settle for a lame, boring life. You want to kick ass and get the most out of life. And that's why you're here. So, let's do this. And you know, Real Wealth is all about, as you know, being a member of Real Wealth, it's not just about making a lot of money. That's great, but Real Wealth is really about having the money and also the freedom to live life on your own terms. One thing we've seen is that some people are so poor, all they have is money. So we're going to go beyond that. We're going to look at strategies that can help you make more money and be a more focused investor, but also at the same time, how you can have more fulfillment, more joy, more happiness in your life. That's what this is all about, right? More fulfillment, more joy, more happiness. All right, so I'm going to ask you just to have that mindset of an open mind. An open mind collects more riches than an open purse. So just open your mind up today. We're going to take a look back at your year, look what worked, look at what didn't work, and how you grew and how you learned and how you can take that learning going forward. Because we don't want this to be you. We want to make sure that we have our head in the right direction or in the right place, and we want to be aware and see the opportunities around us. So here's my goal for today. My goal for today is to help you gain clarity, awareness, and to learn from the past year of your life so you can experience even more fulfillment and real wealth in 2020 and beyond. Because there's a problem. The problem is that life is busy. Our lives are so busy, and we often put off what really matters. And we don't even realize what really matters until it's too late. I've seen this over and over. I was a business and personal coach for over 15 years, working with hundreds of clients, and I realized that we are all super busy and we have a lot on our plates. So the cool thing is you're here. You're going to stop, slow down, and do this year completion to really get clear on what really matters. So here's the plan. If that's the problem, you need a plan to get around it. So this is the coaching model. Basically, it's envisioning what you really want, getting clear on that. It's strategizing, coming up with a game plan, goals, strategies, intentions, breaking that game plan down and then implementing it, putting it into action. And then after you put it into action, it's stepping back and looking what worked, what didn't work. The observe arrow there, observing what worked. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to really take a look back on 2019. We're going to kind of spend most of our time here in the observe arrow, and we're going to do this as quick as I can. I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions, and I really see you as the expert in your life, and I'm just here to ask you the right questions, hopefully, to draw out the best answers. All right, so please make sure you have something to write with and something to write on, and let's move forward. We do this same process with our whole company at Real Wealth Network, and we have since 2003. Here's our whole team in San Diego. Just last month, we all got together and really looked at the year, what we learned, how we grew, and what's next together. And we're going to bring some of those same exact structures and questions and systems to you here today for your whole investing life. Here's Kathy in front of the room, talking it out, coming up with ideas and looking at what worked and what didn't work in 2019. And we mixed a little play and fun into there as well. You know, don't want to be all work focused. And we also do this with our property teams, our developers. We take a look at what works for you, what's best practices, how can we better serve our members, how can we better serve you, our members of Real Wealth Network. And so this same process works in a group setting, it works one-on-one. It's a really cool thing that Kathy and I do with our daughters every year, and we've done it together. So it's a great process. I really highly recommend that you take your whole family through this process and look at these questions as well. This is all leading up, really, wrapping up your year and completing and bookending your year. It's about setting yourself up so next year you're more on track, you're more focused and more aware moving into 2020. So on January 11th and January 12th, I'll be presenting the Focused Investor Creating Your Year program in San Mateo and in Los Angeles on those two separate days. First, Kathy's going to speak, and she's going to kick us off with her 2020 housing predictions, what's coming, where's the economy headed, what markets are best, what are undervalued and going to take off, all that good stuff, always valuable. And then after Kathy deliver the Focused Investor Creating Your 2020, today is all about completing your 2019, and 2020 is what we're going to look at going forward, your long-term vision, way out 20 years, looking at back 10 years, 3 years, and moving into how you can be more focused and on track. All right, so with that, let's boil down this clutter, the busyness of life, and look for some simplicity in it. Thank you, Albert, on that one. It's all about doing a year-end completion, wrapping up the year. It allows us to pause and reflect, to look at what's working, what's not working, what didn't work. We also learned how to be happier, and we're going to go over that in just a moment. And each year we can become better. I believe that when we get better, everything around us gets better. So I mentioned the happiness piece. There's a neurotransmitter in our mind called dopamine. And, we might not have a money tree, but we do have a happiness tree. There's dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. They're like the quartet that are responsible for our happiness. So many situations can trigger these neurotransmitters in our mind. But instead of being in the passenger seat, there are definitely ways that we can intentionally cause them to flow. And one of those is being grateful, meditating. It can be looking back what we're doing today. So that's why it can bring happiness when looking back on what's working, the successes and wins, things like that, what to be grateful for. You're going to feel a kind of a dose of joy coming from that dopamine that will help. And it's all about making our brains better. As we know, and we've learned that our brains are almost plastic. They're liquid in a way. They can form and get better over time. They didn't used to believe this back years ago, but scientific research has found that our brains continue to evolve and grow and get better as we use them. So as we learn, our brains learn and get better and actually change their neural structure to be more effective and more focused. So that's a lot of the benefit we're going to get from looking back and doing this year completion. So with that said, let's start looking back. I'm going to be asking you some questions as we go along here. I see you as the expert in your life, so hopefully I ask you the right questions that are just help you get more clarity of that expertise. But looking back, I always like to start with this one, the big one. What was the best thing that happened in your life in the year 2019? What was the best thing that happened in your life in the year 2019? Go ahead and write that down. And then going beyond that, what else? What else happened in 2019 for which you are most grateful? What are the successes and the wins that you experienced this past year? And go ahead and write those things down. Okay, so you might be feeling a little dose of dopamine there, feeling grateful, feeling happier. Really cool to look back and look at what this year was for you. Now let's think about the people in your life. So who comes to mind from this past year that really gave to you or really helped you move ahead? Who comes to mind for you? And then think about anyone else. Who else gave to you this past year? Just notice who that first person was, but then also think about who else. Think about your friends, your family, people you work with. And then, what can you do to acknowledge those people? How can you reach out? How can you let them know how they helped you grow, how they gave to you? And what you're going to get here is a little dose of oxytocin, that love drug, the snuggle drug. It's that neurotransmitter that we get when we think about people, when we're proud of someone and we're stoked and we really care about people. So think about what you can do to acknowledge those people. And now let's take a look at rituals. So hopefully you did the Focused Investor program this last January, where I asked you to put some rituals in place and what would be good for you. So what helpful rituals did you actually develop this past year? What were the healthy habits that you put in place, or the healthy rituals that you put in place that helped you grow and get better? Go ahead and write that down, or those down. And then what about the bad habits? When you look back, what are the bad habits that you shed this past year? Maybe it's only one, but it's a big one. What's one thing that you stopped doing or you let go of over this past year that you're really proud of, that you're glad that you did that? Go ahead and write that down. And now let's look at the big picture. So looking back, what was the theme of your 2019? What was the theme of the year overall for the whole year? So another way to look at this is if they were to make a movie about your life in the year 2019, what would the title have been? Or what would the title be for a movie about your life in 2019? So what was that theme? It just helps us really capture it in one word or one short little phrase, what this year meant to you. All right. And then it's always important, I think, to not just look at only all the great stuff, but also look at some of those challenges and look at the learning with that. So, we're always dealing with challenges. I'm sure that you've experienced one or several this year, but like this little guy, failure, sometimes you don't have an excuse, but it happens. So let's take a look back at that, because looking at mistakes, I love this from Niels Bohr. He said, an expert is someone who has made all the mistakes which can be made in a narrow field. So if you made some mistakes this last year, well, you became a few more steps closer to being an expert in whatever that might be. Sometimes it's an investing mistake, sometimes it's a relationship mistake, or whatever it might be, but we get to learn from that. Okay, so looking back, what were those biggest mistakes? What were the biggest challenges in 2019 that you experienced? Maybe it wasn't just a mistake on your part, but what were some of the big challenges that you faced in 2019? Go ahead and write those down. What were the big challenges in 2019 for you? And of course, the most important thing here is, what did you learn from those challenges? So what did you learn from those challenges? Maybe write down the challenge, and next to that challenge, write down the lesson. What did you learn? Taking more self-responsibility, personal responsibility, really owning it. What could you have done differently? What did you learn from that challenge? And what can you do differently in the coming year? That's the big lesson here. What we can learn from these challenges and mistakes, how we can get better year after year. Because sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. I just love that. It's just a great approach and a great focus. And then let's look at you. Let's look at you and your personal qualities. So what was the personal quality that you most developed this last year? In 2019, what personal quality did you most develop? And I got some examples there. It could, maybe you developed more courage. Maybe it was authenticity or integrity or kindness or boldness. Self-discipline, did you improve that? Grace under pressure or humor? What was the one personal quality that stands out most that you developed this last year? And now I want to share something that we do every year at that Real Wealth Retreat. When we get everyone together, we do a SWOT analysis, and it comes from business, but it works really well for personal qualities as well. So it's basically, it helps us determine our strengths, our abilities, and our next steps. So a SWOT analysis simply stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's take a little time here and just under strengths, just write down strengths, and then write down what you see as some of your greatest strengths. What is it that you bring? What are your greatest strengths? Go ahead and write a few of those down. All right, and once you have some of those strengths written down, then move on to weaknesses. So what do you see as your weaknesses? What are your underdeveloped qualities? It's just great to be aware of them. You don't always have to go working on them, but it's great to be aware of what you see as your weaknesses, because often you can delegate or get someone else to handle that where you're not strong. So what are your weaknesses? After you have one of those listed, or a couple, hopefully not too many, what about your opportunities? Looking forward, what opportunities do you have? What do you see here as an opportunity for you next year and into the future? And then what about your threats? What do you need to be aware of? What do you need to watch out for? Just becoming aware of this. So you can work on this on your own, take it and really dig in and look at what are those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Going through this process can really help you learn and grow and see what's coming. And again, this is about completing your year. It's about wrapping up your year so you can go forward armed with more knowledge, more awareness. So completing and completion. So what do you need to take care of to feel complete with this year? What's the things that need to be done, that need to be handled? So what do you need to do to feel complete with 2019? So maybe it's some tax planning, maybe getting it done now. Maybe it's making some charitable donations. Maybe it's prepaying any expenses so you can get those write-offs. Maybe it's reviewing your portfolio, meeting with your investment counselor. Maybe it's cleaning up a mess. It could be as simple as that, just getting something handled, something so you can feel complete. Maybe it's that bold and honest conversation you need to have with someone that's been kind of in the back of your mind. And you're like, oh, I don't feel like doing it, but you know it needs to happen. So anything else that might have you feel complete so you can wrap up this year. So what I'm wanting for you is to feel complete with this year so you can move into 2020 clear, aware, not like there's this ball and chain dragging you down. So what else? What would you like to let go of? Is there anything that you'd like to let go of? Maybe it's emotionally as you move into 2020. How do you want to end this year? And I think it's great to do a ritual around this, like write down what it is, write down what you want to let go of, and then you can do whatever you want with that. You can crumple up that piece of paper, you can burn it, you can rip it up into little pieces, whatever it might be for you. Just make a ritual, kind of a ceremony, say, I'm letting go of this. I'm leaving this behind in 2019 so I can move into 2020 with more clarity and more energy and more vitality. And then just give some thought. Is there anything else you need to feel complete with this past year? Is there anything you need to do, anything you need to say to feel complete with 2019? If so, please write that down. And then it's all about putting this into action. You know, Helen Keller said it so well. Ideas without action are useless, right? So we want to move ahead. So we want to look forward at what's next. So I love from Buddha here. Thank you, Buddha. What you are is what you have been. What you'll be is what you do now. So we looked back at what you've been, what you've done, the year, the good stuff, but also the not so great stuff, but also taking the learning from that into 2020. So 2020, here we go. Getting ready for that. I got your big 3 targets here. What are the big 3 goals going to be? We don't have time to do that today. This is about completing 2019. Congratulations on doing that, wrapping up your year. Now you're all ready for 2020 and looking at what's next to create that year. So a reminder again, on January 11th and January 12th, Kathy and I will be in San Mateo on the 11th and then in Los Angeles on the 12th. For that live event. So would love to see you there at that live event. And I just want to go into this last piece around learning, because I want everyone to be aware of, the Real Wealth Investor Academy is free. It's just going to realwealthnetwork.com. we produce over 100 pieces of new content, new educational content every month, from blog articles to podcasts to from webinars, all that. So the Real Wealth Investor Academy is that. You're probably aware of the Real Wealth Show podcast that Kathy's been doing since 2003, and the Real Estate News for Investors podcast that comes out about 5 days a week with all the latest real estate news that you need to know as an investor. And then, of course, there's Kathy's book, Retire Rich with Rentals. You can find that on Amazon or any bookstore, which is all about what she's learned over the years in single-family rentals and how to basically create ongoing cash flow from real estate so you don't have to work forever. All right, congratulations on that. You've got your year completion. Happy 2020. I hope you have a great year, and I really hope to see you at our upcoming live events. Again, for more information on how to register for those events, go to realwealthnetwork.com. Look forward to seeing you there, and we're going to create some really good stuff in 2020 and beyond. Can't wait. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.